now we do have, it is going to be Peak in the blue right here and Dredgelords in the yellow. They're starting off, they do have a charger for that long range across the gap into the middle of the map. They're going to be putting out pressure into mid, coming in from Dredgelords, but it seems like Peak's got the early zone cap. Not much going on in terms of team fights so far. Both teams trying to feel it out, but it does seem like a player on the side of Peak went down in that foil squeezer.
Yeah, and talking about the foil squeezer, there's been a lot of discourse on Twitter lately about, is that the replacement for Forge? You know, a lot of people believe that it can do things better than the Forge. You know, if you tap shot it, you can get some quick 3-shot kills. If you hold down the trigger, you can just get 1 in 4. Spectre trying to push in here with the Ink Armor, which has not lost a lot of traction. I've seen a couple of teams run that double Ink Armor composition with an N-Zap and potentially a Tri-Slusher or another N-Zap. We see Tsuki there trying to get on top of the barrier with that Tri-Slusher Nouveau, which is good for the Splat Zones mode because it does have that Ink Storm available. Unfortunately for Spider Roll there, they're going to get caught in the enemy ink, and it turns into a 3v3 situation with Dredgelords forcing Peak into a lot of positions that they don't want to be here. For instance, Resbit was stuck down in that moat for quite a while.
Yeah, they're able to finally turn it around, though. Is Peak also maintaining that little bit of a lead that they had right there? So looking pretty good. Now it's Spectre was just trying to paint around and make sure that they had some map control for their team, but ooh, there goes a sneaky bomb coming in. Gonna kill Meep right there on that charger. Suki seems to be in a bit of a precarious situation trying to come back into as the last member left, but seems to be having to wait for the rest of the team at the moment.
Yeah, the momentum has definitely shifted in Peak's favor there as they now have control of mid and have gotten past the halfway point. There's still 3 bubbles hanging out on top of the zone too. So as they're starting to drift apart here, they could be popped in order to maintain that map control in mid. Suki really hasn't gotten the opportunity to leave this a sponge here as Spectre is able to take them out, and that's unfortunate as they lose all progress toward their special. We also see a 3-down situation forced by Peak, so this one could be over just as quickly as it began.
Yeah, right now it's looking very dire for Dredgelords. They were feeling themselves early, but seems to be in favor of Peak. They're going to take the lead right there. And it might have come down to, at that point, we saw Spectre near the end right there. She was in a bad position for herself, but she managed to get a double in a situation where she was 1v2.
Yeah, and I think that was a big misplay there by Tsuki on the Tri-Slash Nouveau. Really, really difficult position to be in. You know, you have that sponge painted in your team's ink permanently. That can never change. And so they can just sort of shark around on that square until they're able to peek out and have the high ground in order to get that quick 2-shot kill that the Tri-Slasher is known for. However, Spectre's aim just a little bit too on point. I think Tsuki missed 1 or 2 important shots in order to avoid the trade, and because of that, they really didn't have any momentum or any specials with which to push in, giving Peak game 1.
Yeah, and definitely there was a bit of a hesitation from Tsuki as well, as their other teammate was in that 1v1 for a little bit, maybe 2 seconds, but 2 seconds can be the difference between a splat or not, and that's what exactly happened right there for them. A good, nice, clean win for Peak right there, starting off their top 24 cut right as we get into game 2 right now. Rainmaker, Mako Mart right now. We're going to see how these teams like to bring it out, because one of the main weapons you see on Mako Mart a lot is that blaster, because it's so effective at shooting around those stacks and getting people out of that little bit of high ground. I know it's not the highest elevation point, but it can be difficult if you don't have a blaster to take it down.
Yeah, and that first win for Peak was so important. I think going into game number 2 here, they're going to have the momentum on their side. A lot of teams are fueled by momentum. If they're able to get a win, it sort of takes all the pressure off their shoulders, sort of alleviates any mistakes that they were able to make in game 1. And I think Peak kind of falls into that category. If they get too far behind, I think it throws off their game, and in this case, they should be right on form as we move on to Rainmaker Mako Mart. You talked about those stacks, those boxes, those essentially aisles in a grocery store where they have like cereal and different things that they can sell. I really like the actual aesthetic of the map, but it caters to a lot of different play styles. There's a lot of nice straight open hallways. If you want to use a longer range weapon like a rapid blaster and kind of stay around that area, you can. If you want to flank with a short range weapon, that also has the opportunity to do so. And then there's those platforms that you can use if you're somebody like Resbit to just kind of stay back, use those boxes for cover, do some right peeking, and still have an effect on the objective.
Yeah, neither team really bringing out a blaster on this map, but we do see an Octobrush, which can be effective at sneaking around those stacks as well here for them. They seem to be going in early, got the early pick onto Spectre, but Resbit's able to clean it up for them right there. So now it seems to be pretty much a neutral game, as it's a 3v3 scenario for both teams as they wait for their members to respawn back into mid.
Mudcup, I would say, known for their aggressive playstyle, but it's not really paying off for them as well here. A lot of their teammates are able to clean up the kill, and they're just kind of being the distraction. They will finish off Meep there, and that's part of a 3-down situation that's going to allow Peak the first real push of the game. Tsuki missing those important shots on the Rainmaker will finally get them down, but it's after the halfway point, so lots of points lost on the side of Dredgelords where they could have stopped potentially 5 or 10 of those points. However, Tsuki just rolling around here waiting for the right time to use that Inkjet. They will pop it now, looking for a kill on Spectre, who's able to duck behind the boxes, and now she reveals herself a little bit, but dude, also a target is a bit too far away. They'll get nothing out of that Inkjet.
Yeah, it seems like Dredgelords is kind of forced into their spawn. Mudcup getting a nice pick right there, forcing him to jump back as well. That's going to make sure that Meep doesn't lose that Stingray that he's trying to build up for another push, but it doesn't seem to be coming just yet. The Stingray is going to be coming out from Resbit instead as they push onto this left side right here, and Spectre looks to be pushing this forward, probably going to build on this lead just a bit.
And this is exactly the way we predicted them going. Spectre able to get all the way up to almost single digits, up to 13. A Spider is going to help stop them along with Suki. And this is where teams can start to feel steamrolled a little bit. If they can't get out of the spawn out towards that flat area, it's really difficult for them to build up their special Spider roll using the only one they have available here, which is that Inkjet. However, again, nothing really coming of it. They do miss the last shot there onto Resbit, and that would have been a very important kill. However, Mudcup is down and the Stingray is out, so there is the opportunity here for them to try and make something out of this push.
Yeah, right now they've got to be pushing pretty soon. They seems to be wanting to push onto this right side, but that's definitely a tricky scenario to find yourself in. Maybe going for a quick push is the way they want to go with right now, but look at it. They're already respawning on the side of Peak. Dude's going to go down right there to some well-placed shots coming in from the rest of the team. Another nice shot from Meep. They've got a chance here, but look, they're already respawning, and that's the tricky part with pushing on the right side.
You have to know exactly when to just kind of throw all caution to the wind and continue pushing the Rainmaker, or when to stay back, maybe throw one or two cautionary shots in. I've seen many matches this tournament even where they've thrown just a cautionary shot in around the enemy spawn and have been able to get a kill because of it and push the Rainmaker forward. We now see Resbit popping the Stingray, looking for any sort of combatants that they can take down. Meep took a little bit of damage there as they were coming off of that ink rail, but all this time Spectre is coming through, and they were able to successfully make the jump over to this left-hand side. Now Meep and Squib having to adjust over to try and stop another potential push here, and they've already lost one member. However, a nice kill there will stop the Rainmaker, at least for the moment.
Yeah, I would have liked for Spectre maybe to just take it a little bit slow. She had the positioning on that top left side. Could have just stalled it out for a while and waited for the rest of her team to come in to help, because that's such a strong position for the Rainmaker to be in right there. They can't really approach you if you don't really move forward, so she definitely could have stalled it out for a bit longer, but still, they do have complete map control on the side of Peak in their favor, looking to hold this one out for another minute and 52 seconds.
And Dredgelords did expend a Stingray and an Inkjet at the same time there, and in theory that would be a pretty difficult tandem to work around, because you have the Stingray constantly trying to locate people, and there's also an Inkjet overhead watching over you. So we see another one coming out here from Spider, but they will instantly get shut down. I don't know if that was from the Splat Bomb or not. Squib will fall as Resbit's using this Stingray to great effect, and all this while Spectre has been a great frontliner and also a Rainmaker carrier here. They're now going to try and stop this Inkjet, which they will pretty handily, and instead of going left, as they have been recently, Resbit will probably opt to take it right, since that's where most of their ink is held.
Yeah, he was trying to push behind the bubbles of Dude right there, but unfortunately for him, it's going to get taken down quickly. Now it's a chance for Dredgelords maybe to stop this push. Suki's going to be able to pick off Dude as well. He was the last one up for their team, so they can finally try and reclaim mid on the side of Dredgelords, but it seems like already Peak is getting back into it. They weren't able to make the most of that situation.
And it's so difficult. You know, you look at the long-range matchup between a Charger and a Splatling. The Splatling can both be a long-range component and paint a ton. The Charger really only has that slaying capability, so if your Charger is not constantly on point, you're essentially fighting a 3-4 in that instance. Spectre able to finish off Suki even though they were pretty heavily damaged, and we now only have 40 seconds or so left in the game, and so Spectre and the rest of Peak are going to actually try and push this one forward. Some teams at the less than a minute mark will just put that Rainmaker shield as inflated as it can be and then hold on to it. That's not the case here. This is actually allowing Dredgelords to get another shot at it. Dude missing a few shots, allowing the Rainmaker to continue on, but the map control still so heavily in Peak's favor that it's going to take somewhat of a miracle for Dredgelords to push through.
Yeah, Resbit was holding onto this Stingray for quite some time. Didn't really need to use it, but gonna do it anyway right now. Seems like Mudcup's just gonna bring it around. They can't really get to him in 7 seconds or so, so he's gonna be safe. This game is over. No one in position right now. That's gonna be game 2 going to Peak 2-0 right now.
No map control, no specials, and no hope left for Dredgelords in that scenario. So a nice job by Peak to secure, I believe, game 2. Really fantastic job there by Resbit. I think he was the main component of that team, sort of not only getting kills, but locking down the vast majority of map control. And there wasn't all that much that Dredgelords had available to them that was fantastic at painting. Of course, you have your standard stuff like an Octobrush and a Tenatech, but those are the weapons you really want to just be focusing on slaying for the most part. And they didn't get the opportunity to excel. Therefore, a lot of this loss sort of came about in the team comp selection.
Yeah, definitely could have played that one much differently than they could, but that game's in the past right now. They got to move on to the next one. It's going to be Clam Blitz on Humpback Pump Track is our next map here, so this one is definitely different from any of the others we've played so far. Clam Blitz just in general is such a different mode because you have to play other weapons that you might not always play. You have to pretty much bring out a bowler at this point, wouldn't you? So might be seeing weapons like a Slosher Deco or something like that. Dude can maybe stay on his foil. Squeezer with the bubbles is pretty solid pick, but there's got to be a bowler on either of these teams.
And that's one of the more difficult aspects about Clam Blitz on this map in particular is that it's so relatively open that, you know, your normal strategy of throwing a bubble blower in, it's not much, but it's at least something. If you can stay within those 3 bubbles, it does give you quite a good shield when nothing else in that radius ever could. And especially because the defending team has the high ground consistently on you when you're attempting to push through, you really have to wait for that 2 or 3 down situation and use a special in order to push in and successfully get that barrier broken. So as we look at Dredgelords comp, what we've seen from them in the first 2 games was very hyper-aggressive. That could play well on this map because it's so open and pretty easily accessible for flankers to get behind the enemy team. However, Resbit has been constantly on point as the backbone, that long-range component of Peak, and I don't think so far Dredgelords has had anywhere close to an answer for that.
Yeah, definitely going to be a tall task coming into this next game. We're getting into it actually right now as they get into this game. It is going to be, once again, Clam Blitz on Humpback Pump Track right now. Game 3, game point actually for Peak. So if they win this one, they're moving on to round 2 of the top 24 cut. Looking pretty good. We do see Dude maintaining himself on that foil squeezer, and we do actually see 2 ballers coming out from Dredgelords, so they're ready to do some super jumping.
Yeah, you called it. The Slosher Deco is absolutely in play here for Dredgelords. Peak sticking with mostly the same comp. We are, instead of seeing an end-tap, we are seeing a 10 attack and a splatter shot. So Squib having to use the range here to sort of stay out of the way of those relatively low-range weapons. It does look like neither team really gaining an edge here. Mudcup, that's one of those flanks that I was talking about. They use the outer ring in order to get behind and then push into the inner ring. Now, you do have to be careful when throwing a splash wall down as well, because if any of the enemies throw one of their sub-weapons against that splash wall, it does have instant detonation. There's no longer that delay in when it comes out. So that's a great way to get a kill against somebody who's using that special in that way. But as we start to shake things out a little bit here, Peak looking as strong as ever. They are being followed by Spider Roll, so they won't quite get the throw in, but the actual map control is very heavily in their favor so far.
Yeah, there are the bubbles coming up from Dude. That's going to allow Spectre to pick this up and should be able to score as well. Yes, she is. That's going to be the first clam going in favor of Peak. They get another one at that. They're looking pretty good to start this game off, and it seems like Dredgelords has been fighting from their spawn this entire game.
Yeah, and like I said, that does give them high ground advantage, but we are seeing a couple of quick flicks there from Meep, just barely missing the triple there onto Dude, who was located, but that is exactly the kind of defense you need. And I like the pick of the Fire Fin here. It does have that splash roll so that you can protect yourself, and the Suction Bomb Rush so that when they get in situations like this where they're lacking that map control, they have the Suction Bomb Rush that can allow them to push in. Spider not anywhere close to their inkjet yet, but they're using that low wall in mid to try and hang out. Instead, Suki over by the pit trying to push in on where that Power Clam is held. The Power Clam, similar to the Rainmaker, does locate you to everybody on the map, so you have to be incredibly careful while holding it. A great double kill there by Suki is going to help force a 3-down situation, and now Dredgelords looking like the team to beat.
Yeah, they've got the early score right there from their Power Clam. That was a quick one. They used 2 ballers at that to maintain their map control just around the goal, but they don't have quite as many clams as Peak did on their push, so this isn't probably going to get down to that point where they're going to take the lead, but right now it seems like Peak is going to take the advantage. Dude is in the center of the map, looking to get 2 actually right near him. Gets the help from Mudcup off to his left right there, so going to be looking to build up that bubbles and maybe get another push as they're going to get the Pity Clam coming in from their side.
And I like Dude's patience here. Dude doesn't feel the need to just rush into somebody's face and immediately start a team fight. He was very patient, decided to build up those bubbles, threw them out, and then wanted to get into a fight here. Mudcup sharking around, waiting for anybody from Dredgelords to drop down. That was, I believe, his Splat Bomb that just barely missed Suki as they avoided it. And now the bubbles are having to be shut down before the actual Power Clam gets pushed in. And the Splashdown is going to detonate those bubbles immediately, giving Spectre the opportunity to play Bodyguard. And that's a full wipe forced by Peak onto Dredgelords, so they should have a great opportunity here to extend their lead at their leisure.
Yeah, Dude picks up 5 more clams right there, so looking to make 15 more points go in his favor. Nobody's really throwing it in, however. Right now it seems like they've been shut down by, maybe it was those bubbles right there coming in, but looks like Peak has finally been able to deal with the pressure once again. Spectre's going to be alive for a moment. throws in a couple claims, but gonna go down to Spider Roll right there on his 10 attack. Spider Roll now in the center of the map, looking to try to get that map control back, but needs to be careful because Mudcup and the rest of his team are coming in on him.
And you can see Squip going all the way around on this far right-hand side. It's a part of the map that hasn't been inked at all yet. Nice double kill there by Mudcup, and they're going to look for a triple. They get the first 2 shots, but they're not quite able to finish them off. That will likely result in an assist. And now here comes that flanking slosher that I was talking about. They go down as the baller has been activated, and this creates the opportunity here for Dredgelords to start regaining some of that map control in mid, which they desperately need before they can start making an actual push on the clams. But we're in a 3v3 situation now. Spectre in her optimal range to try and take out Squip and get some help from Dude, as those call-outs are likely going back and forth. The bubble blower is at the ready. This is going to be such a difficult one for Dredgelords, but that pick, stopping that bubble blower from coming out, is going to help drastically in their efforts.
Yeah, definitely needed to take that bubble blower down just to make sure that they don't get a score on them in the other direction. But we saw it earlier that the Slosher Deco goes down. They went down before as well, so that's going to be no bowler coming in from this push, maybe from the 52 gal. But they need as many bowlers as possible if they're going to be able to get back into this one right now. Seems to be going for maybe a sneaky score, but actually that is their own spawn they're retreating back to.
Yeah, kind of a tough situation for Dredgelords to be in here. They don't really have an avenue with which to peek out and try and get over to the peak side of the map. Resbit holding onto the power clam, doesn't really feel the need to pressure the spawn too far. They already had a couple of people doing that. Suki not really even paying attention at that point to the barrier, so that's a free break of the barrier. It doesn't quite get rid of their penalty. Meep is set up to try and defend against it if they can hit their shots, but really all Peak needs to do is get the opposing barrier broken, and that stops Dredgelords from being able to throw their power clam onto the Peak side of things. So that makes an overtime push even more unlikely from the green.
Oh, that's an unfortunate situation. The Slosher Deca going down once again. But that score actually wasn't the worst thing for the Dredgelords, because that's going to give them that power clamp to force overtime right there, which they didn't have at the beginning. Unfortunately, the bowler came out, but there was nobody in a position to jump to him with the power clamp. Unfortunate for them. They're going down in numbers on the side of Peak, but might be able to stall this one out long enough where they can just end the overtime.
Dude just hiding in the bubble with Zoe or a shell, able to actually get Spider, who was pushed up that far, and get the assist on Meep, who pushed pretty far up for a sniper. Squip, the last one alive, and is able to get the kill. They are holding onto the power clam, but they are not able to get that barrier broken in time. And that will be a 3-0 sweep from the members of Peak.